Hello and welcome to Where the Road Rises with me, your host, Eileen Curlin-Walsh. Our returning guest today is, I must admit, one of my very personal favorites is Dr. Robb Thompson of Family Harvest Church, founded by Dr. Thompson in Tinley Park and now with a worldwide presence. In addition to Pastor Robb's successful ministry, he has written 35 books on such diverse subjects as character development, personal excellence, renewing the mind, understanding relationships, and happy marriages. Pastor Robb is also an executive coach. His most recent initiative is Robb Thompson International, an innovative company that helps entrepreneurs, small and large, develop their leadership resources as well as their management skills to help them be successful, both personally and professionally. Pastor Robb travels the globe speaking to churches, governments, and corporations. He empowers and inspires millions of people, from the poorest of the poor to world leaders and even royalty. He has ministered in over 40 countries in the world, and I am just delighted that he will share his wisdom and his worldview with us today. Welcome, Pastor Robb.
Eileen, that the person that you're speaking about, I thought you were talking about yourself. You are such a delight, and thank you for allowing me and trusting me to be able to come and to speak to the people who really trust you with not just their lives, but also with the preparation for their entrance into the next life. So thank you very much for all that you and the people that are around you, that they do for other individuals, because we have many, many people who have great opinions about life. And we have very few individuals that can actually help us translate and live that life. And so thank you, because you've been such a help to many, 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 many people. And it's just a pleasure for me to know you, and I've grown to care for you and for yours quite profusely, actually. But thank you for inviting me back to the program. It's one of the greatest highlights of my life to be able to speak to the people that you speak to.
Thank you. And you are so generous. And today we spoke last on this show, Pastor, in 2017. In 2017, the last thing in our minds was a pandemic. Now here we are, 2021, and it is foremost. So as we emerge to the brave new world, we are seeing herd immunity. We are getting our shots. We are seeing infection rates drop. So please, God, we're emerging. And I wonder what your words of encouragement would be for us as we head back out into the world, Pastor.
Eileen, your ability to be able to communicate where the world is actually off the charts. I could only add to what you've said, that everyone in life needs to live. It is important for all of us to be able to live our lives independent of the kinds of things that we see going on. We are consistently driven by either a belief system that things are going to become better, or one that is now going to be driven by fear, where we avoid people, where we stay away from people, where the anger and the tension of what we're going through is spilling out. It's really spilling out over others. And the lack of kindness and compassions and the kind of things that individuals are facing, not being able to see their loved ones and And when they do, and they find out that they could have seen them all along, and then little reports are given, which just become further frustrations for all of us when the day before yesterday, the CDC came out with the report that over 90% of the COVID-19 tests that were administered actually were false positives. It is true that there are so many that are losing so much. And the ones that we loved and the ones that are really susceptible to this particular virus, and which has caused this pandemic, that although that they are that they're at tremendous risk, yet at the same time, the greatest encouragement that we could ever give is to encourage people to be able to live life, not to go on as nothing ever happened, to be cautious, of course, and to take the precautions that everyone needs to take, like washing your hands. If you didn't do it before, you should have been washing your hands. If you were doing things actually that are now, that they're encouraging us to be able to take care of ourselves hygienically, all of that should have been done with people in the past. It's just now kind of at a heightened place. And so I would encourage people that through this pandemic, because I like the rest of, in many cases, much of the media will come out and say that we fairly we're toward almost a new normal.
Yes.
When there's so much turmoil, there's so much heightened tensions in our marketplaces, in our political structure, in our nation, that what we need to do is we need to actually make sure that we continue to live our lives regardless of the distractions that society seems to be facing today.
Oh, right. Those are encouraging words. Pastor Robb, let's speak to the grief, the loss of lives. You made mention of those who were not able to be with their loved ones. Yes. Pastor, I sat with a client who had lost her husband just a few months previously. And I said, did you have an opportunity to see him? Were you able to Zoom? Were you able to at least talk to him? And she said, I was in intensive care myself with COVID. So that family were sat at home stricken with their father who did pass, their mother in intensive care, not able to be with them, not holding hands. So just the depth of that grief. What words would you speak to those who not only did they lose their loved one, but they weren't able to be with them. They weren't able to grieve with family and friends and mourn in their traditional rituals in a way that does offer comfort for them to be able to walk on in their shoes. Pastor Robb, what would you say to them?
I would then at this particular moment, Eileen, and you drove our vehicle right down the road, and I would like to encourage those people, your listeners and your viewers, that they're going to be able to see their loved ones again. That was not the end of their life. It was just them passing from this life to the life that they were entering. It's not really ever a goodbye. It's only I'll see you soon. Because each and every one of us is only here for a time. And it has just been so unfortunate, because all of our focuses have been on those who have gone on before us, and in the nature and in the way that they did. But for the individuals who have lost a loved one, let me say, because it is true, how deeply grieved that we are at their loss and their inability momentarily not to bring closure to the feelings that they had for someone that they loved and they cared for. And I want to encourage all of them at this point to live an empty life and not to live a full one. And you live an empty life by being able to tell people every day how much you care for them, how much they mean to you, how much that their life has meant to your existence, to let them know every day that their life has meant something to your existence. And when you do that, and when you live empty, that no matter if that person is gone the very next second, you will have known that you've already told them all the things that they've ever meant to you.
Thank you.
And all the things that you could have never become without them. And although that there are many that have lost a loved one in the middle of all of this crazy chaos that we're facing, they must also know that we are only passing through this life. We're not in this life. We pass through it. And Eileen, you yourself know that, even in your own home, is that God never wanted life to be this way. This is all a result of what happened in the Garden of Eden when Adam decided that he was going to walk away from God. And when he did, we have spent the rest of all of our existence, all of our existences, we spent all of that time trying to return to the very thing which we lost all those years ago. And we search for it every day. And so for those who have been bitten by grief and by pain, the only one that could ever heal anything is God himself. By receiving the Savior, as Eileen, you've spoken about so many times, by receiving that Savior as your Savior, as well as your Lord, he'll wipe away the pain. He will wipe away the tears. He'll give you a purpose for life and for living. And then I think that you'll realize and that you'll understand that when someone goes home, they're only going to sleep, but they're not going to be any less in being resurrected. And that way, for eternity, you will be able to see them again. And one other thing that I would like to be able to mention, and that's regret. There is not anything else in life that cannot be taken care of and cannot be dealt with, and the books can be balanced on, except regret. Because once you regret something, it seems like there's no way back. And in this particular case, live your life with those who remain. And in one of the parts of my life, I tell people that your life is only affected by one of two things. It's affected by your future, or it's affected by your past. If you allow your life to always be affected by the future. You won't live with regret.
Oh.
But there seems to be a moment in our, let's just say in our chronology and in our age, in our aging, that life turns around to where we had such great hope for the future, to now where what we're doing is we're looking at the past. We're looking at the things that we didn't do, that we didn't take a risk with, the love that we didn't give, the words that we never said, the people that we didn't tell how important they were to us. And so in order to be able to live a pleasant present, always live that empty life. Don't live a full one. Well, they know how I feel.
That's unusual, and an unusual way to look at it, but it really makes a striking point. And I love the idea that instead of regret and bitterness and sadness, that we look to the future. And I love that we see the life as temporary and know that we'll be reunited with our loved ones. It's just exactly what we need to hear, Pastor. Let me ask you about teenagers, pertinent for me. I have 3 of them right now. And I heard we were all concerned about our children when the schools closed and everyone was home. And I read an article early in Shelter in Place that don't worry too much about your students' education. They'll always catch up with their education. Nourish, nurture, watch their mental health. And I truly took that to heart. And I was more concerned with my boys that they were able to manage, they were able to stay healthy. And thank God they have been fine, Pastor. Many teenagers have struggled. They've struggled not with just losing all their activities, but their friends. They've lost a sense of belonging. They've lost the growth, that vital socialization that they would be participating in during 7th grade, during 8th grade, during their first year of high school. And the last year, so much of that has been taken away. And for those who are struggling, maybe you could speak a little to them with such a, please God, long future in front of them. Maybe you could even reflect on your own teenage years to give them words to go forward and have them believe that they no regret over what they missed in the last year.
One of the things that it's very, very true statistically, there is more teen suicide now than there really has ever been.
Yes.
This isolation that all of us have faced has really brought, let's just say, a lot of reality to bear. When at the height of social media, and the things that our young people are facing, peer acceptance is a real thing for all of them. Being accepted by the people that are around them. I recall a situation that I'm actually actively involved in. A few of them right now, but one of them is that a young girl in the state of Florida that no longer wanted to go to school because all of a sudden what happens is that the group of friends decides that they want to turn on this one person. Mm-hmm. And they do. There is, a pack belief system that they all have, and they turn on one individual and persecute them and ostracize them and put them out. And it causes, especially during the midst of this great isolation and the quarantine that we feel. We didn't have to be quarantined to feel quarantined. We already felt alone. At first, we thought, oh man, this is going to help me kind of catch up on a little bit of rest that I really needed. And at first it really did. I mean, as a matter of fact, Eileen, we as a church have not met in person for a year.
Oh.
And so I mean that, so I understand that, but, and I'm also dealing with a young lady whose friends have, they just decide they don't want to be friends anymore. Mm-hmm. And because they don't get to be with each other, then that causes that young person to really believe that things are wrong with them. So what's the remedy?
Yes.
You know, what's the remedy? What do we tell our kids? Is that we actually lay out before them a consistent, almost daily casting a vision of tomorrow in front of them, that their best days are ahead of them. They're not behind them. Mm. And so we're constantly saying, okay, what is it that you'd like to do? Where is it that you'd like to be? How is it that we can get there? How can we achieve the goals that you have? Yeah. Because one of the things that people need to understand is that unless you've got something laid out in front of you for tomorrow, no matter how old that you are, death already has you in its grips. You're already dying if you don't have something for tomorrow. And that's, even we can go back to the people that have suffered horrible grief, like the nice lady that you were speaking about, that the focus does not need to be onto grabbing onto the people that still remain here. That isn't it, because they'll end up rejecting you as well. So you need to make certain that you're constantly laying the future out in front of people, telling people how great that they are and how that they're going to be able to make it, not lying to them, which has happened over the last generation, is that our kids have not necessarily been as good as we'd like to believe that they were. And now they're getting out there into the marketplace and they're sour because they haven't really worked for anything, because it's all been given to them because their parents had to work. And so their parents' wealth and influence has been able to help them through. But now as they begin to enter adulthood, that begins to be a real challenge and a real problem. And so the consistent encouragement of our young people, the consistent affection, the consistent of words of love and understanding, and always being willing to listen to them, always being willing to help them come to grips with the kinds of things that they're going through. I think, to be more frank about the challenges with friends, I think it's easy to probably say these young people, whether they be boys or whether they be girls, their hormones are screaming. And then you're telling them that they need to be alone all the time. Well, that can only go so far. Okay. And because it doesn't have the encouragement, it doesn't have the excitement, it doesn't have any of the things that you get when you are around other individuals. And so the helping them achieve wholeness, and I deal with a number of psychologists that I help. And one of the things that they're facing is, and of course their business is going through the roof. There's more therapy that's going on now than ever. Medical doctors are telling me that they are prescribing more tranquilizers as well as sleeping pills than they ever have in all of their practices. And so the thing that we need to do in order to come to grips with that is to always keep someone's attention, always encourage them about what their future is going to be and how they're going to be able to achieve that. And you are correct, very correct, about the whole idea of don't sweat the books. But at the same time, you need to make certain that they do everything they need to do, because many of our young men and young ladies need to have the scholarships for university that, you know, because parents don't want to spend $60,000 or $80,000 a year to send their child to university, but at the same time, they certainly don't want the child coming out of university with in between $200,000 and $300,000 worth of debt.
Yes,
which someone's always willing to give them, which I haven't understood yet. Mm-hmm. Because if a person can't get a $500 credit card, but yet you're willing to give them $300,000 worth of debt for school, that somehow doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But I suppose as we bring this to a reduction concerning our young people, is that we're consistently encouraging them, consistently affirming them, consistently bringing them to a point of affection, consistently causing them to realize that this is only a place that we're all going through, honey. You haven't seen this part in your life. This won't be the last thing that you see during your lifetime. And whatever you do, you have to remember as a parent, like you did with when your kids were really small, that if they were running and all of a sudden their legs went out from underneath them, they banged their head on the floor, and you're thinking to yourself, right at that moment, you're making a decision of whether you're going, oh God, what just happened? Or are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Or the other side of that is, it's no big deal. Get up. Will you please? You're going to fall down again. You have to make that decision. Yeah. Because if you make the deal really big, your teenagers are going to make it huge, because that's just the way it is. Yeah. But if what you do is you consistently say, okay, we're going to put our heads down. We're going to get through this. This is where we're going to go. This is what we're going to do. And lay out in front of them something that they can look at that will be building their life, not just putting them in front of TikTok and Snapchat and the other social media and, you know, God forbid, Tinder, but but placing in front of them a pathway, because we know that with God, his word is a lamp to our feet and it's a light to our path. Wow. And so the same thing must be true for us and our young people. Yeah. That what we do is that we consistently lay out a pathway for them, a pathway of success, a pathway of a better life, making certain that they get the amount of activity that they need, and trying to get them around the right influences, because you can see young people kind of one-on-one and all of that, and getting them around the right influences, because since they've been so bottled up, it's easy for them to do wrong things. And so I just want to encourage parents that have young people that, yes, there are some that are having a difficult time. And if you find your young person is bottling and they're isolating and they're having a difficult time, if you can't seem to get through to them through love and care and holding them and telling them how great they are and kidding with them, if you're not getting through, therapy might be the answer for you.
Yes. Yes, and not for parents not to be ashamed to go there. I love
Oh, no,
I love
no,
that, Pastor. And I love that you mentioned faith. I recently interviewed Neil Steinberg, a columnist for Chicago Sun-Times, and he said that his sons were grumbling about having to take their bar mitzvah and why did they have to do it? And did they have to? And he said, no, you don't have to. But think of your faith as a rubber dinghy that you're carrying over your shoulder as you walk through a forest. You're walking through a thick jungle and you're wondering, why am I carrying this heavy thing on my shoulder? And then in order to traverse the forest, you have to cross a lake. And there you have the dinghy on your shoulder. And I just thought that was a lovely way to explain to children. And I have since explained it to my boys who, just like his boys complained about the bar mitzvah, they complain about going to their religious education on Sunday and their confirmation and their Holy Communion. Not the ceremonies themselves, but that they have to go to something. So to explain to them with all the resources, God as a third parent, God as someone to be with them all the time too, is not too old-fashioned. It's still good for them to know that faith has a place in their burgeoning lives. Pastor.
It's a very interesting understanding. I think that was invaluable of what the gentleman had mentioned. One of the challenges we have is that we attempt, and it's not on purpose, it's just something that happens, is that things come down to a place to where it's an action that people think is old-fashioned, unnecessary, something that I don't necessarily really believe in, or a person really wants to have their first Holy Communion, their confirmation, that they want to follow what God has to say because they really want a relationship with God. And that's the relationship aspect of it. Once a person has a relationship with God, the first Holy Communion becomes a way that I can say to God, God, I believe in you and I want to follow you. My confirmation is that I'm confirming and being confirmed that the Holy Spirit has a place in my life. Mm-hmm. And as that gentleman mentioned about the rubber dinghy, is that I think about the Jews as I see them, and when I look at them, or I see some Hasidic individuals, and their uniqueness and peculiarity, that I can see how they could upset somebody. I understand it, but at the same time, the dedication that they have towards something that has made them the greatest businessmen in the world, the greatest inventors in history, and the ones that have actually, through the structure of what they've done, they have caused humanity to be able to make it through all of these thousands and thousands of years. I look at what's happening in our nation today, and the greatest persecution that people are going to see will be against the Christians. They don't understand it yet, but this is very little different than what we've seen history in the past, and history does repeat itself. It's just the people that are seeing it are only seeing it for the first time. And so it's Christianity that gives America its structure.
Right. Yeah.
The Judeo-Christian law. I mean, you understand your Blackstone law. you get the fact that it's those original law books that are the structure of our nation, that we can trust a system, even as little as we do, having sometimes just some very wicked people in those positions. The position's not wrong, but it's the people who are in the positions that need to be altered at times. And so it's that kind of structure that has made America what it is, the greatest nation that the world has ever seen.
God bless.
And
yes.
A very, very, I mean, Eileen, you're from Ireland, and so many Irish people came from Ireland to America with the same search in mind, that they wanted to be able to love God, serve God, create a better life, and to be able to express themselves and to take the opportunities that were afforded them and to show the world what they could create out of their desires. And so that's a pretty interesting kind of thought.
Thank you, Pastor. So in addition to our families and the struggles that they have had and are coming through with the virus, business owners too, pastors have struggled. Some have been shut down. Some people have lost their jobs. So for the businesses that are, again, emerging post-pandemic, what would your advice be to them? Would you say that if you get a certain mindset with your business, you're going to be successful in any environment? Would you say that this is an opportunity for them to hit the reset button? What is your advice to the businesses who feel that they've, suffered a tremendous setback? And maybe you could also tell us a little bit about your business initiative, Robb Thompson International.
The biggest thing that we find is that you cannot stop an entrepreneur. The entrepreneurs have to consistently adjust the way that they go about everything that they do in business. Multiple streams of income are the things that our businesses need. We've now discovered that we've had a certain amount of years where, and it took us that long to be able to build many of our businesses, but we find that we now need to change the way that we're doing business. We saw this with restaurants. Some closed down completely. Some tried to, kick against the authorities that were coming after them. And we found some that were able to do carry out. Now, in some cases, Eileen, of the people that I have had the privilege of helping, in some of those cases, some individuals have done better than they were doing when they were, we'll just say, open to the public. Mm-hmm. They've done better at being able to offer their services to the public. They found different ways, innovation of people are always going to eat. People are always going to need gasoline. What are the things, and this is something that you ask, what are the things that we can do that are always going to be necessary, regardless of what's happening on the surface? I cannot express enough that all of this stuff on top was a distraction. I'll give you a small scenario even of the business portion of the religious end, is just as an example. Mm-hmm. many of my contemporaries globally, because this is global, this isn't just American, it's global. Many of my contemporaries are in between 30 to 50% less than they were at the time that things were open to the public. 30 to 50%. I'm not. I'm more than I was when I was open to the public. And the difference is that one person can say, okay, I can see this. Let me change a bit of what I'm doing. Let me retool what I'm doing. Let me give you an example of that. I have a man who is who's been a plant manager over some chemicals that are necessary for the farming industry. And all of a sudden, 2.5 weeks ago, I get this call. I'm in my car. I get this call, and this gentleman's on the other side and said, 2 weeks ago, I just got this great bonus, and now today I got fired. And like there was nothing to it whatsoever. And he was devastated. And I said to him, this is the greatest thing that could have ever happened to you. Because right now you're making the decision of whether or not that you're going to do that business that you always wanted to do, or what you're going to do is that you're going to sit and sulk and use up your severance package while you want to go back and do the very same thing. And just the night before last, Eileen, very, very interestingly, he calls me and he says, I got this offer from this company. It's matching the most money I've ever made with a bonus. It's in another state. I don't have to move. I don't have to have anything. I don't have to do anything in order to be able to fit into this slot. They're doubling my responsibilities, which will then end up doubling my pay. And I don't really, they want me for my mind. I said, now we're talking, because now you have the finances, as well as you have all the money from your severance package that you could actually invest in the business that you and your wife have told me for years that you wanted to be able to start. And so with the businesses, some people are caught and they're trapped and they don't know what to do, based upon the fact that, let's just say that many of them are really close to retirement age. And they figure, like, I got 3 or 4 more years. That's all I got to do. And then I'm going to be done. And then I wanted to get out of the business, and I just wanted to go off into the sunset, go to my little cabin in Wisconsin and just live life out. Well, I agree. For them, that's difficult because they don't have the time to retool. But what they do have the time to do is to be able to take whatever wealth they have and to begin to allow their wealth to be able to create more wealth for the future. And because when you understand the markets, and there are so many of your listeners and viewers that know so much more than I do in this arena, but when you understand that when this thing goes up, something else is going to go down. And when you know that now you need to make sure, do you have enough life insurance? Have you had, Eileen, have you had Eileen Curlin Walsh take care of your
affairs,
estate planning and affairs? Is everything where it needs to be? Are you able to, let's just say, have things in the kinds of trusts that will be able to save as much of the wealth that you've accumulated? And so no matter what, Eileen is worth 2, 3, 4 times the amount, or 5 times or 100 times more than she would ever charge you to be able to do it. But have you had the time to sit down and create a plan, an exit plan for life?
Yeah. Yes.
How do I want to end this? Where do I want to be? And Eileen is the lady. She's the wonderful girl to help you achieve that goal. And all of those things, life is progressing, Eileen, regardless of whether or not that we're devastated about the pandemic. Life is continuing to move on. There are certain things I can do nothing about. I can't do anything about the pandemic. I can wear my mask, or I can actually have the mask police come after me because I didn't, but at the same time, I live in Illinois. This is where I am. Governor Pritzker is my governor. That I have to choose, is Illinois where I want to live?
Yeah.
And then do I have what I need in order to be able to make the moves I need? Because right now is the best opportunity of the last 50 years for a person to make the changes that they need to make. And one of the things that people stop doing, and I'm going to just zip it right here, but one of the things that people stop doing after they're very, they're younger adults, one of the things that they quit doing is that they quit risking.
Yeah.
And life is if you sit where you are, you're going to lose everything. But if you risk it all, you could gain it all. And everyone could see you as the individual that you wanted to show yourself as, being the leader of your family, being a leader in the marketplace that you wanted to do. Don't listen to all of the challenges that are out there. They are there. You didn't have anything to do with them, and there isn't anything you can do to change them. But what you can do is you can do things to change you and to change your kids and to change your life and to take care of your future and to make sure that everything is all in place, because each and every one of us are going out of this world. Yes. from the moment that we come into it. Yes. And so I just want everyone to enjoy the ride, and then make sure that the biggest thing, I had a fella tell me, he said, something, he said, I want my grandkids to remember me. He said, I could just see it. He said, I'm planning out my funeral right now. I said, oh yeah, tell me about it. He said, I can see my grandkids just throwing themselves on my coffin. Just going, oh, Papa, oh, Papa, oh, Papa, oh, Gramps, 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 oh, Gramps, please come to, and then walking out together from there, out of the funeral, and saying to each other, what did Gramps leave you? And that's exactly, Eileen, what you've done for so many people. The pandemic has been devastating. It has hurt so many. But why do I want to cry about my mom? My mom is at a place now where she'll never have to cry again. Yeah. I'm crying for me. I'm still here. I'm the one that's got to figure all this out. But Eileen, thank you. Thank you so much for what you do. I cannot think of a more important thing in this world that people need to do, but to take care of their families in the case that they're no longer going to be here.
It's the ultimate gift, isn't it? It's the ultimate love letter.
It really is. It really is.
Other area of love that I would rather do. I just love what I do. This is just terrific, Pastor. Last couple of questions. How are we doing? How are we doing as a human race? You have all those years of ministering. You saw your flock, if I may, through the last year. You've continued to minister without being in front of people, which they were used to. Are we doing okay? Did you see more love and compassion than you saw selfishness and hoarding? Do you think we're doing okay? Are we getting better? What do we need to do to improve?
What I have experienced, Eileen, I'm certain it's not everyone's experience, it's just mine. But it's one that I recognize that is global in its nature, is that the middle is clearing out. The people who are difficult are becoming more difficult. And the people that are compassionate are becoming more loving and more caring and more helpful to everyone that's around them. That people are recognizing that others are people too. Others have value. Not just value, but they also have worth.
Yeah.
And they're recognizing it. And so how would we be doing as a human race? I don't want to be cliche-ish in my response, but we're right where heaven knew where we would be. And we see the light of this life. We see it dimming a bit, but we're seeing the good become better. While we're now able to recognize that some of the challenges we faced with certain individuals have been there all along, and we just didn't want to recognize it. So in that, as a suggestion, is that rid your life of everything that God doesn't want you to have. Rid your life of the sources of pain that people bring. And put into your life the people that not only are pleasurable, but put into your life, love people that love you. Don't constantly try to chase the ones who only wanted to use you. And so, yes, it is true. People are great. I remember the little story.
They are great. They are great. And Pastor, last time you were on the show, you said something which has always stayed with me. And that was, I want to be a sermon, not give one. That was the little nugget that I took away and carried in my heart. So maybe you would leave our viewers with some final words of wisdom, if not your own, maybe a Bible verse that you love, or a quote, or maybe a little line from a poem, something to leave us with as we go back out into the world and with the hope that we've talked about today.
This one small thing I've been thinking about, and there are two things that happen. People are they're very pained over a relationship that has hurt them. And the one thing that I've really thought about quite a bit is that respect is given, but trust is earned. I can respect every man but I don't have to trust every person.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible never tells you to love God and trust people. It tells you to trust God and to just love people.
Trust God, love people, and we all want to earn others' respect. Well, trust. Well, I respect and I trust you, Pastor, and thank you
Thank you. You're very kind.
For your words of wisdom and your insight today. And thank you, viewers, for watching. You can find Pastor Robb. He has a YouTube channel. You can find him on his Facebook page. And when we're able to congregate in person again, you can find him at the Family Harvest Church in Tinley Park. Thanks again, Pastor. Thank you, viewers, for watching. I hope you emerge with more faith and with more hope for the future. And I will see you next time on Where the Road Rises. Thanks and bye.